Hey, what's up, everybody? Hi, Mom and Dad. I'm Elbo. Today, I'm going to be making an open-mouth raptor out of goldenrod, a cadmium yellow. And we're pretty far along in the piece already. We're going to get right to it. Right now I'm just flaming in the piece, giving it an annealing flame, bringing it a little bit more up in temperature before I detach this brace, this clear brace. These braces were added to stabilize the legs when I was doing the welds. Just cleaning up the nubs of clear off the bottom of the feet right now. All right. Give it another annealing flame, just kind of even out the heat of the feet, because it's really thick glass for the feet. So borosilicate, really, the way that we're working it with the thinner bubble and the thicker limbs on it, we just have to be careful with the splashing of the flame. When we have the super hot flame, it causes stress, so it's always good to just give the whole thing a nice even heat after you work it. Next we're going to do the tail, and we're going to be using solid rod for the tail. What's the joint out? Yeah. And prepping this color up took a couple days. This is day 3 of this piece. Most of this piece is solid. About 75% of it is solid works. Only the head, the body, and the joint and downstem are hollow, and they're fairly small hollow sections. Now I just got to melt this solid down, flatten it into a tail shape before I apply it to the body. And soft glass and furnace glass is a lot different than the slamp working style that we do here. This is more the art of heating up the glass, while the furnace work is really the art of cooling down the glass. You know, they're taking out the hot glass and constantly cooling it, manipulating it while they're working it. We're constantly heating it up. So it's a little opposite. Also, while soft glass is more of, furnace work is more of a dance, this is more of like an illustration, more of a painting. I'm making like a little cone shape for the tail because the tail is really fat where it's connected to the body. Taper is more thin to the back, so we're kind of just pre-getting that shape before we flatten it out. Get it really hot where it's flopping, and we will flatten it on the marver. A lot of this piece is heating up solid and flattening it. Most of it is just flattening the glass. I always loved the fact that you could flatten and cut glass and manipulate it in other ways than just turning it and blowing it out. This is the tail bit. We'll also prep a joint and downstem in between doing the other moves and assembling it. So every time I do a move on the main piece or on the main sculptural pieces, I have to put them in the kiln for at least 10 minutes in between each move just to even out the heat and stress. So it's good to kind of time out some work in between those moves. I'll work on this slowly in between that. This is just an end of the yellow from the pole we made here in class. Just going to even it out. This glass is encased in clear. Has a thin a thin clear coating over it. Right now I'm just going to shape this into like a 16mm tube, essentially. Or at least a 16mm diameter. It's always tricky working with the opaque colors because I cannot see the inside wall weight of what I'm working. So I have to kind of use feel and whatever visual cues I'm getting from the surface on what's going on underneath. I can tell it's really thick from the way it's moving. Just gonna kind of slowly work that wall weight out. This is a graphite marver pad on top of my torch. Mainly used for just shaping the glass, rolling the glass on it. Just got to clean up the tip of this tube. And I'm just slowly heating it, giving it puffs, you know, bringing it down, blowing it out, bringing it down, blowing it out, trying to even out that wall weight as best as I can. And I can see from the way it's blowing out that the wall weight still needs to get evened out a little bit. I'm going to use my marver to shape this joint out. Just going to take heating and using the edge of the marver to kind of cut in a jack line. We're starting to get our joint shaped out a little bit, pre-shaped. From this, we'll shape a Maria right below the joint, and that's where this part is going to get welded onto the piece. Now, this is the part, the section that's going to make this glass piece a functional pipe.
I would maybe give you a second. I don't know that. What's your question? I'm pretty sure you're going to hear it. Yeah, just give it a second.
Just heating up the part that the Maria is now. You're gonna have to even this out and blow it out. This is gonna be the same technique. Be melting it down, blowing it out, melting it down, blowing it out. Cadmium colors are difficult. Not only do they want to boil too when you're working in them, but they also want to not allow you to see what's going on inside. Usually with pipe making, primarily working with transparent colors, but the sculptural stuff always seems to pop a little harder with the opaques.
Try that pretty thick there.
Yeah, not too thin, not too thick. Like, probably like, I'm going for like 2.5 mil would be like ideal. We've got a Maria figured out there. Shape the joint. And I'll shape the joint in the next heat. I'm gonna go back to the piece and put the tail on. This is a big solid attachment to a hollow attachment, so I'm going to put more of my heat in the solid attachment, but I'm going to need my hollow part to be nice and gelled up, have like a gelled surface of glass. So Want the surface to be hot, but don't want it to be moving. When I say gelled up, I mean the surface almost literally feels like gel. Has a jelly consistency. Stick that on. Give it a little air. Tail is on. We'll give it just some shaping now. Heating and shaping, and we'll give it a little bend and a taper, and then we'll weld it on completely to this piece. Tapering that tail a little bit. Give it a little bend too. Just getting this tail to have that nice swoop of a bend. And I can't overheat it, I have to just heat it a little bit at a time so I don't distort the shape too much. 'Cause I'm just going for the bend of the shape. Gonna just even out that area I initially attached the tail because there's stress over there from the heat. I'm gonna go in and clean up this tail weld as well because with borosilicate, you cannot leave any undercuts in the welds. It's not like the soft glass, so we have to individually go into each weld and clean them up. Each part of the weld and clean it up. Right now I'm using gravity and this mini torch to just even out the tail swoop, kind of that flow. And I'm also taking away any undercuts. And the glass, when I bend it, it causes a little stress on the surface that I have to polish out with the flame as well. That stress you can visually see. Just takes polishing out. Right now I'm just working out any undercuts in this weld. And by undercut, I mean a fold in the glass that isn't completely welded together. This is the last quarter of the weld that I have to finish. And then I'll put this back in the kiln, return to making that joint. Next, we're gonna have to sit this thing flat for this part.
You leave a bunch of that tail hanging under.
Yeah, yeah, and even visually right now I was looking at it and I was like, is it even hanging low enough?
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah,
It looks really well.
right, it does, but yeah, I like to flatten a part of the tail.
Yeah. Tripod.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't need to be flattened, but it's kind of a cool look if it's like looks like it's really pressed down with some weight on it. All right, I'm gonna open this up and just look at this wall weight and see what's going on the inside. I'll actually set a timer too for my piece I just put in the kiln. Have to wait around 10 minutes. So that'll give us 10 minutes to play around with this. And the head is also made, still on the hollow handle. So that also needs to be worked on a little bit in between moves. Shaping the joint out a little bit. Very thick. Just gonna open up the tip so I can look inside of it and see just how thick or thin it is. I just need to get it open. It looks pretty good, so we're gonna go with that. I'm gonna clean up the lip with the straight shears, kind of soft glass style. Just slowly work this lip. It's cadmium color, so it's very has a very low boiling temperature when the cadmium's exposed. So we have to be very gentle with it. Use a very oxidized flame. That's why my flame is so loud.
I would use an ultrasonic cleaner, but we don't have it. What up?
Just trying to get this lip clean. We're gonna put some clear on it too to protect that color. Borrowing some 6mm Avicon. Gonna apply a little clear lip wrap to this joint. I'm just trying to cover that color up. I kind of smear it on there because you're really just looking for that coverage.
Oh, how old was I when I started blowing glass? 15, I was 17. That was like, probably, I was 16 when I turned 17. So I was 16.
Actually, how that lip wrap went down, there's a little bit of cadmium exposed on the lip, so we're gonna have to re-wrap it. Just because on that tip, if there's any exposed color, it's gonna wanna boil because we're gonna have to apply some serious heat when we're doing our shaping on the tip of this. So to try to counteract that, I'm gonna paddle this in, try to pull the clear over that color. And I'll also lay my line a little bit further out on the edge. In my studio, we call it reballing.
Oh yeah.
Constantly reballing to make sure we got what we want.
The name of the game.
Whoa, shaky. But it's okay.
I love this hair design more than anything. Yeah. That's why I got the hair design.
Swiping off some of that extra. There we go. Spreading that clear over it. Okay, we've got it all covered up. Have a brass joint reamer essentially. It's the same size as a 10 mil joint, which is standard for the fittings that get put inside these pieces. I only recommend a Quave club banger or a JP Toro slurper. Oh yeah, shout out Straddle Gang for the culture. All right, so we've got this pretty close. Now I can kind of work that lip out where I put that clear. Try to make it look like a manufactured joint, just give it that look. I'm gonna bead the tip up by heating it up, paddling it, reaming it open, heating it up, paddling it, reaming it open. Check my time. Up, we're about at 10 minutes almost here. I can go back into that piece. This joint's really close, so I'm just gonna finish it off. Alright. Nice. You know what? I just prefer less surface area touching the inside. Because the glass is perfectly round, you know, so when you put it in, yeah, it's less contact, exactly, and like less cracking issues for me personally. But I know plenty of people that do use the waxed joint as well, the quartz joint or the glass joint. But yeah, we're actually pretty much there on this. I'm actually going to let it cool down and go in on this piece again. Come back to this, just make sure it's fitted good, and then we'll continue on. We're pretty much there, just needs like a very light touching up on the lip. but this is essentially the joint, the Maria, and then the extension of the downstem, which would be the functional aspect of the piece. Yeah, it's very close.
Okay, yeah, that is close.
But we want all points to contact, including the tips of the claws, back of the tail. Everything needs to be contacted on the ground, or it starts to get a little wobbly. Everything needs to be touched on the ground. But it's gonna just take a minute to just heat up every point of contact. Trying to get everything warm, almost hot on the bottoms, because it's nice if it is really close, it can flatten out real nice. If it's nice and hot in the feet, go for a sit. Initial sit is good. Now I need to go into each individual claw and have it touch the tip so it doesn't want to lean forward. Because right now we can get a sit like that, but if I were to let go, it's going to want to fall forward. So I'm going to go into each individual claw and push it down so that it contacts the ground. I'll start on one side, go to the other side, all the way on the opposite side, because the residual heat, if I go to the next claw, might end up moving that claw. And I have to hold the tail down because the tail is like the most important point of contact. And this large handle is going to keep pulling it forward. So in order to really feel if it's stable or not, I have to like hold that tail down. That's why I'm pushing the claw down actually before I go back to the marver. Not trying to push it down on the marver. So it'll start falling. And we'll let it just even out naturally. We need to wait for that glass to cool down too. Go to the next one. I'm really just heating the claw. But the back is thicker, so I have to heat the back part, and the heat will move. So I can feel that this one actually needs to be pushed down a little bit more. That's why you have to like kind of like try to feel if it has a wobble too. And this time I'm gonna actually make sure that it's touching on the tip. Okay, so that side looks good. It's actually, now I'm looking and I can see that there's like a millimeter of clearance on the other side. So I have to go back to the other side, push that down. It really takes just you know, finessing it. Nice. All right. Now we just gotta do these two inner claws. I'm actually gonna push these down the tip and then hold the back. And the graphite pad is super hot, so that's like what's keeping the bottom of the feet from cracking right now, because I keep going back to that hot graphite pad because it's so hot from that initial big heat and squish. Nice, we're good now. We're real good now. So I'm like, can't wiggle it. Before it had like a movement when I did that.
Twisting it kind of back and forth?
Yeah. I'm actually even looking at the very tip of this one inside claw, and it's like just barely not touching.
Attention to detail.
Well, it's really like, that's like the most annoying thing when you put the piece down, it's got a little wobble when you're trying to hit it. Also, like, at this point, this is the easiest time that I'm gonna be able to like get everything perfect while it's on the handle like this. Nice. All right. So now we're sat flat. Triple check, triple check. It's good. Restart the stopwatch, 10 minutes. Go back to the joint for a little bit because this kind of probably needs another minute or two. Really, I'm just like cleaning up the lip a little bit and just making sure that that fitting tool fits in nicely. Needs to be worked a little bit more. The opaque joints are finicky when you cannot see the inside wall weight. Just gonna slowly condense it just a little bit. To condense it, we're just heating it up a little bit and turning as even as we can and letting the glass just naturally heat up and come together. With my shape on this, I'm almost going for like an Evolio shape, like on the goblet stem. I'm kind of trying to get that swoop, but also with a straight sidewall to the joint. I was really into making goblets before I started making pipes. And so I take a lot of aesthetics from that, try to incorporate it in the work. I'm not using really like a scientific joint tool. This is kind of just like handmade style that's like easiest to do in your garage, essentially.
Very similar to Elbo, except I shape mine a real before the bottom. Okay. I don't know, it's just my order of operations, how I kind of got in the habit of doing it.
Do you actually push them through? Or do you just like flare and
I do push them really, yeah. But then you gotta you gotta go in on the inside and really use that inside to get that lip out of there. I try to shape my joint like pretty much how it's gonna be, and then at the end I just like pray it first. But after a lot of practice, it's like pretty easy, yeah. But I wouldn't even necessarily recommend it.
And we've got some time between this move right now, so I'm just gonna finesse it a little bit more, just because we have to wait. I'm just shaping that joint. Trying to get the sidewalls a little bit more straight by using the edge of the marver and the edge of my paddle. Kind of push that wall in on the outside. Also, I'm stretching it a little bit as well by pulling while I'm doing that ever so slightly. All right. Little water reacting with the beeswax from the condensation of the tube. Condensation builds up in the handle. see the water in the handle, condensation buildup. Nice. Just really finessing it. Just really trying to get the glass to do what I want it to do. But I can't beat it too hard because the glass will get tired. So I have to be somewhat conscious of how hard I'm pushing it. And that's good. Flaming it, giving it a nice general heat because I just worked it really hard. And sometimes you can't see it in the video, maybe you can here, but I go under the bench to try to see the glow. And that wasn't glowing too much, so I know it's nice and cooled down. But if I saw a really bright glow, I know it's not time to go in the kiln quite yet, but we're good. We're at about 10 minutes again, so we're going to transfer this Raptor. Going to use a piece of 12/7 to do this. 12/7 tubing. 12.7 millimeter diameter. Exterior diameter, right?
Yeah.
12.7. So to do this handle, I'm going to build up a little bit of material on the tip, just like I was with the joint for this piece. I like to have a little extra meat on the end for when I do this stick. I gotta flame this thing in again because there's a lot of stress going on. It's big, fat, solid pieces stuck on this bubble. It's always gonna want to get flamed in before it gets worked. Anytime I kind of go around that, don't do that, ends up being a bad time. So I'm going to pop a hole in the belly for the handle. I want to make that opening a similar size to my tubing opening. While it still has that good core heat from me opening it, I'm going to do this move. stick a little bit and I give it a tiny little tug and a little blow. Just to expand that weld a little bit, but I'm going to have to go into that weld in quarters and clean it up. Notice how I'm also detaching it here on the clear part, not in the color, because I know that this is safer over here. The color might have stress I'm not aware of right now. Now I'm going to go into quarters. I have to take my time to do this and work this weld in, so I'm going to go in the front quarter first. I'm just going to work this first quarter. Now we got the first quarter welded in. Gonna give it a little flame. I gotta go slow because I don't want this thing to flop around on me. Do flaming again. I'm doing super light flaming because if I did this too hot, then it's just going to keep that weld hot. Then it's going to be flopping around on me, but I need to give a little bit of heat to those sides in between the pads because it's the thin glass in between the thick glass there, and that's where all the stress resides. And I'm welding right in between all that with this handle, so I need to be conscious of what's going on. Got one more quarter left to do and then we're good. I'm taking my time with this because it's such an important weld. Finish my last quarter now.
Yeah, I've seen that. I used to do it back in the day.
All right, nice. I'm just looking for like no undercuts in that weld and like that the weld looks strong. This looks good. This looks good. While we have that on a 10-minute timer, we're going to bench cool the joint. We're going to flip the head around and open the neck of the head up. Use 8mm rod for the punty on this head. It's going to be a solid seal, a hot seal, not a cold seal. It's very rare that I do cold seals. I just don't trust myself or the glass. Here's the head pre-made. Yeah, this process will take several hours to finish up, you know, putting the joint on, doing that weld, putting the head on, getting everything nice and cooked in, and looking all proper will take quite a bit of time. This is just a very small tip of the iceberg that you're seeing today of the work that goes into this. This is where the neck connection is going to be to the body, and that neck on the body right now, it's straight because it was on a handle, but it's going to get bent up so that the head is angled at a 45 degree, not only for the aesthetic of the piece, but also so you can look down at the joint while you're smoking it. And by the joint, I mean the joint of the piece, the glass fitting. Need to give this whole thing a heat. There's a lot going on in this head. Bunch of cuttings, bunch of solid, bunch of hollow. A lot of stress going on. So we need to make sure that this head's always warm. Even when I put the piece together, this head will have to be kept warm. And the black on the piece is carbon building up from the flame, and that burns off with a hotter flame. I'm going to attach the punty. And this punty is going to be attached to where the mouthpiece is going to be opened up. So when we take this punty off, we're going to open up the mouthpiece as well. Just going to give it a flash. This is getting cold. looking over the whole thing, making sure it's okay. Yeah, because it's so thick. I can do it without air. I can also, like, if I had like an open tube with me, I could blow in, or I can also literally just blow into that opening, like, and it'll puff it out. Just looking it over, polishing things out, making sure everything's good. This is just a point of a lot of stress, and I just want to make sure that it's nice and cooked in. But now our head is ready to go on the body, but the body has still a ways to go. The neck needs to get bent, the joint and downstem need to get put inside of it. And again, that black on it is just carbon. It'll burn off. How much more time do we have left? This is probably a long process, so maybe a couple hours.
Okay.
We would need.
Wrap it.
Yeah, I think it's like a good stopping point right now. I wish I could do the other welds right now, but it's just going to take a lot of time to get everything prepped up. But thanks for tuning in.